Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Fans Talking Athletes podcast. We've had some great guests on so far, and today's guest definitely fits that description. I would like to take this time to introduce a man who is a fierce advocate for the beautiful game in Canada and who is the former host of the show MLS on TSN. This is Kristian Jack. Thanks, Kristian, for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you, Anga. Pleasure to be on with you guys. And it's been a difficult time for lots of people out there, and hopefully people are listening to this with a smile on their face, and that's what sports can bring us. So thanks for having me on your show. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. So, you're someone who can make the studio a classroom as you educate fans, enrich the game for us all, even, people that are, I'd say, pretty well educated in this sport of soccer like myself. So before we get into your magnificent career as a broadcaster, covering some of the top athletes around the world, I wanted to take this time to get to know a little bit about the young man from the University of Central Lancashire with a background in newspaper journalism, if I believe.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I always wanted to do a little bit of writing, and I loved to write when I was a kid, and always been kind of obsessed with sports, and found a way to try and I'm like, how can I stay in sports if I can't make it as a professional athlete? Yeah. And I found that media was something that I was really passionate about, writing in particular, and then obviously went to university for journalism, but did a bunch of other things in media in college as well prior to that, and photography and radio and nice. Different things in that, and video learning and things. So yeah, I've just always had a passion for media, and then to cover the game the way that I've covered it I've been very fortunate. Obviously, when I moved to Canada, that kind of had stopped for a couple of years. I had to try and find different things and different avenues to find my way in, and then here I am, 18 years of experience on Canadian television and in sports, particularly with the Score and TSN. So it's been a journey, and it's been great.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're fortunate to have you come over and bring your, very, very deep knowledge of the game of soccer. And I'd say quite, unique analysis and really, I guess, educating fans, especially here in Canada, where soccer obviously isn't the biggest sport, definitely on the rise, but it isn't quite the biggest thing yet. But yeah, so who's kind of been, your favorite athlete to interview so far?
I think from a soccer point of view, my favorite was Bastian Schweinsteiger.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just I have so much respect to speak to people who've done everything and won everything in the game, and he literally has. You name it, Champions League, and World Cups, and I understood when I spoke to him that he has done a lot of interviews, and I always try and make them very different. And I did a lot of research, read books, and did a lot of research behind it, and I often want to talk to people about how failures can actually lead to success. Everybody sees them lifting the trophy at the end of a competition or the end of a season. And what I remembered about Schweinsteiger covering those teams was everybody thinks of Germany that won the World Cup in 2014. But the story is that they lost in the semi-final of the 2010 FIFA World Cup to Spain. And when they came off the field that day after losing, they lost by 1-0 on a set-piece header. But they got outplayed, absolutely smashed. It was 1-0. And after losing that day, they realized we have to play like them if we want to reach our level. And, he went and won the Champions League for Bayern Munich, his hometown team, and played for Bayern for years as a school kid. He was there. And they won the Champions League at Wembley, but he missed the penalty at home in the Allianz Arena for Munich against Chelsea in the Champions League final. So every success that he had at first was dictated by failure. And it was a fascinating mental approach to how he got through his life and how he dictates it and how the mentality is to win. And just to talk about that kind of psychological part of the game, I love to learn from people, those high performance athletes that have reached the very top in their mentality. So I got lucky to interview Schweinsteiger 3 times at least, maybe 4. And every one of them was something that was a true thrill for me.
Oh wow, well, I appreciate you sharing that story with us because we are all about talking about athletes here on this podcast and getting that sort of background that you don't really see with the likes of Bastian Schweinsteiger. I know he recently came over to the MLS and he played for Chicago Fire, I believe, for a little bit.
That's right.
But yeah, his international stint and especially over in Bayern, he's done huge things. And I still remember that 2014 Germany team was quite something. I believe that was a World Cup. They beat Brazil 7-1. So that was quite something to behold as
I
well.
talked to him about that as well. Sorry to interrupt. That was another thing we
Oh, yeah,
talked
yeah.
about. And you think that would be, you remembered that right away as being one of the true highlights of his career.
Mm-hmm.
And as a true winner, you'd think that. And it was embarrassed by it. It was a
Really?
fascinating thing. It was like in the end, it was like they didn't even celebrate one because they just reached the World Cup final, and that's not the job done, is it? You need to win the
Right.
game. But it was almost like in Brazil, and I get the feeling whenever I speak to people that when they spend a long time in a country for a competition, when you play that host nation, there's a lot of pressure on you to win it, but you feel the World Cup, you live the World Cup, you live in that country during that time, and they almost felt like I said, embarrassed. He felt a little bit uncomfortable with the way. I mean, everyone wants to win a game, but if you won 7-1 against your rivals in the competition in the local city league, you'd be loving it. But in a
Yeah.
World Cup semi, it was just a different, fascinating mindset that he doesn't look back on it as being an incredibly positive experience.
Oh, interesting. And do you think that was something that was shared by the entire German side, or do you think that was just
100%.
him?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. Completely. Yeah, all of them. I could just they're still professional and they're still enjoying the goals, but when the whistle
Mhm.
goes, there's a sense of, as I said, a little bit they're very uncomfortable with it. You could feel it that day. I mean, it was an extraordinary performance, an
Yeah.
extraordinary result, and one that you just don't get to see. You just don't get to see those kind of things. And in a World Cup semi-final, a host team getting absolutely demolished like that. So look, if it was
Mhm.
a final, I think they would feel a bit differently because what happens after the game? Well, you list the trophy and that's your reference point. That's the mental thing that you remember forever, right? But
Right.
for them, it was just the next step to the next journey. And I think they would have happily have won 2-0 rather than 7-1.
Oh, for sure. And soccer's huge in Brazil as well, and it definitely was a bit of a heartbreaker there for them. So on this podcast, we also like to kind of get to know like the unknown stories of our guests. So we were wondering if you could share a story with us that perhaps you've never really told out loud to anyone else, or maybe you haven't ever shared with the media.
Wow. About what in particular would you like to know about?
Anything, maybe like a crazy athlete experience you might have had, or perhaps a surreal footballing moment. Anything that kind of comes to top of mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge sports fan. So, like, obviously, soccer has become something that I've done as a profession. And I always try and maintain what it's like to be as a fan of that. And obviously, you can't be a fan of Toronto FC if you broadcast in Toronto FC games, but it's never lost on me what it's like to be a fan of other things. So,
Mhm.
just thinking about moments of when I was a kid and meeting like big time racing drivers. Like we're a huge racing family, so like
Okay.
whenever I could go see someone, I remember one time my brother was I'm very cautious by nature. My brother's very the opposite. So my brother's younger than I am, and he has a keen eye for merchandise and autographs hunting when he was a kid. And he would
Mhm.
always try and sneak into, climb fences and sneak into like the F1 paddock to meet drivers. And I never forget, we were walking around, my friend and I once, with the British Grand Prix. I think it was in 1994. And a security guard comes up to us and he says, "You guys shouldn't be in here. You're not allowed in here. Come over here." And he threw us into this different, not like literally threw us, but he put us into a
Yeah.
different area. And he put us into the paddock. And I'm like, I found myself walking around and like Michael Schumacher's there, Jacques Villeneuve's
Wow.
there, Mika Hakkinen's there, all the best drivers are there. And I'm like, we're in the paddock. Like as a kid, you would never get anywhere like that. Just meeting these superstars and just kind of having photos with them and getting your autographs as a teenager. That was pretty special. It's never really, it's never really forgot. I've never forgot it, what it was like
Yeah.
to be around these like superhuman superstars of whatever sport you like. I'm
Mhm.
sure that what people always say to me now when I interview big stars in soccer, do you get starry eyed? And I
Yeah.
don't with them, but I understand why other people would, because it's
Okay.
their heroes, and that was kind of like me as like a 15-year-old kid. You know, you're just kind of like, wow, look at these guys. You know, it's pretty special.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's awesome. So I mean, I had two kind of quick thoughts on that. First of all, that's funny that you bring that up because I'm the older brother. I have a younger brother as well, and I describe our relationship in the exact same way. I'm kind of the cautious one, and he's the one that, especially when we're playing soccer, he's the one that goes full into every single tackle. If I see some guy running, and especially if we're playing a friendly, I'll back off a little bit, to prevent any sort of injury. But he's like, nah, you know what? I don't care if this is a friendly. We're going all in. So that's funny that it's a similar relationship there. And the second thing is our editor, actually, his name's Shahan. He's a big F1 fan, so he's gotten me into F1 a little bit, especially recently, with like the Lewis Hamiltons of the world. I believe he's from the United Kingdom as well, and he's obviously huge in the F1 world. But yeah, it's definitely something I'm trying to get into. I know he's a big fan of it, so when he's going back and editing this part, I'm sure he'll he'll enjoy that quite a bit.
There you go.
Yeah, awesome. So kind of sticking on the topic of athletes there and people like Bastian Schweinsteiger, let's say you were stuck on a deserted island. Who are three athletes that you've personally interviewed that you would consider taking with you, and why?
Wow, that's an amazing question. Whoa, three. Okay, three athletes. And they have to be interviewed by me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. First one would be an IndyCar driver called Scott Dixon.
Okay.
So Scott Dixon is a 6-time IndyCar champion. He's basically he's an equivalent to a Formula One driver. He's from New Zealand, and I've got so much respect for what he's been able to accomplish. Again, back to your discussion about athletes, race car drivers and their abilities to mentally check things that need to be checked and focus on things absolutely fascinates me. So these guys, and particularly in IndyCar, they're like modern day gladiators. They're getting in cars and they're driving around, an oval like the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and they're reaching, 250 miles an hour. And they know if something breaks from the car or if they do a little bit of something wrong, they're literally smashing into a concrete wall and they could be dead, right? So, and they've actually grown up seeing some of their closest colleagues, and I've been through this as a fan, die. So it's like a different level of high performance, a different level of mentality. Yet with Dixon and Scott Dixon is just so remarkably laid back. And he's the kind of guy that I've always appreciated. I've followed him as a fan. I enjoyed interviewing to him. I think we have quite a similar personality. So I think that would be certainly one person that I think right away would be pretty good to have on there. A cool, calm customer when you need them, on a desert island. You need to be around people that you're going to get along with. I think someone like Zlatan, because I think of the entertainment factor that he would provide. Now, he's not everybody's cup of tea, and he can really annoy people. I'm kind of the person where it takes a lot to get me annoyed about things. So I think I could tolerate Zlatan. I'm not saying I'd have to think quietly I'd have to think who I'd put him on there with him. But you know what Zlatan's like. I mean, I've been fortunate to interview him a few times. It's all about Zlatan, right? So it's all about Zlatan's world, but he could bring an incredible amount of comedic value. He could entertain you, take care of us, things like that. So I don't mind him talking because I generally, as I talk for a living, I find myself, it's quite funny, I talk for a living, but I'm generally a listener. I like to listen to people's stories. So if he wants to dominate all the conversations and I can just sit back and listen to him, I'm all in with that, mate. You know what I mean? So I think someone like that would be fascinating too.
Yeah, definitely a larger than life personality. And I think hopefully he'd complement Dixon there as well. I can just imagine you three sitting on, and I guess the one other that you're about to add.
Having a little fire, having a bit of a grill or something, you know what I mean? I think that would be good. I'm trying to think who else would I want in that scenario. Wow, it's such a great question. Let me think of it. But who would you have on yours?
Who would I have on mine? Oh, this is the first time somebody's asked me back this question.
But you're a big basketball guy, right? Would you have an NBA player?
Oh, for sure. So I guess, I mean, with my limited experience interviewing people, I wouldn't be too much to select from. So I definitely have to dip outside of that
It
pool. But
doesn't matter about whether you've interviewed.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
For myself, I think somebody interesting I'd kind of well, I mean, I think I'd have to have kind of LeBron there anyways. I think he's got so much to his life. I think he's done so much, and I think he's got quite a bit of wisdom as well. So I think I mean that starstruck factor kind of gets in there as well. But I think once I'm over that, I think there's a lot anybody can really learn from an individual like that who's accomplished so much, and is also taking the time to give back to the community. So I think he'd definitely be on there.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Let's see. I'd be quite interested to have a current Raptor OG Anunoby on there as well. He's quite a different guy, I think, and he's very I just don't know how to describe it. Like he's just unusual. So I think having him there, just like you, I love to ask questions, love to interview people. I think if he was just there, I'd have so much time just to do that and just pick his brain and kind of get his thoughts on everything. So I think he would definitely come to mind. And I'll maybe just stick to basketball. I think Matisse Thybulle is somebody that I think I kind of really respect. He's currently on the Philadelphia 76ers. He's a young guy that they just recently drafted, and he's I guess similar to the OG Anunoby ilk, but I'd say he's more vocal. He has his own YouTube channel as well, and he's just a very, I think, down to earth guy. I'm not gonna lie. I think basketball players are very cocky people. They kind of need that swagger, I think, in order to kind of get to where they are. Whereas different athletes have different kind of characteristics, and I think for a lot of basketball players, they're quite cocky, right? Really in your face, really trying to act like that cool, tough guy. But I think with Matisse, he's a very quiet, humble, down to earth guy, and I think he's also been through a lot with his family and everything. And, I see a lot of his YouTube stuff, and he just seems like a really chill guy, and, somebody that I think I could hang out with, and, who doesn't have like an insanely inflated ego or anything. So I think that those would be my three, just a bunch of chill guys.
I like your points, and I like the point about the NBA, but I also think it works so much to their advantage because they have, so many marketable stars, and when you're trying to get into a league and you're trying to market people, and I still think the NHL is really poor at that and marketing their stars. And I'm a big baseball guy. I love Major League Baseball, and I don't think they market their stars very well either. I think they're getting better at it. The NBA does a tremendous job of marketing their stars, and the stars want to be marketed, so you need them to be marketed if you're going to do that. But I think that's one of the reasons why it's one of the biggest sports in the world. Internationally, the NBA has got so much recognition now because of that. But also aesthetically, it just looks great. The screen, and you can see the bodies athletically; they're popping out of this, almost out of your HDTV. So there's a lot to like about that. I think for me, the other one would be, I was thinking one or the other, so I don't know where you want to go here, but Pele would be one.
Okay.
Because obviously the stories that he could tell us would be amazing. Now, obviously, Pele, bless his heart, is getting older, and his movement's not great, so I'm not sure how long he would last on the island. But so he was the other one, and of course, another one might be Alphonso Davies, because I think he'd be a fantastic to come on again, and maybe he'd put Zlatan in his place a little bit. They can have a game of 2-on-2 or 1-on-1 or whatever they want with a football on the beach or whatever.
I think Alphonso Davies to me is interesting because that's somebody who I kind of wanted to touch on and ask you a little bit about, because, you have like soccer. It's kind of in Canada, I believe. I feel like it's kind of, like, I wouldn't say maybe at a crossroads or anything, but it's really getting to, I think, a critical point, especially like the state of soccer in Canada. So, the country obviously can lay claim to Alphonso Davies, as you mentioned. Jonathan David is another athlete that comes to mind, who I think plays for Lille, I want to say, in Ligue 1 or Ligue 1. And so, we have some like amazing athletes who are quite young still, and quite raw that are coming up, and Alphonso Davies already winning with Bayern. So what do you think? And I guess this is a bit of a loaded question, but what do you think the future of soccer in Canada kind of holds? Like, where do you personally see it going?
Well, I think those guys that you mentioned play a big role in that. Now they're not playing here, and they may never play here again. In terms of
Hmm.
club football, but international game does a lot for the development of a game in a country. We've seen that with the women's side, and we've seen what the Canadian women are able to do on the Olympic game stage, and particularly the World Cups as well, and really galvanize a nation and generate a new generation of players. And youngsters that love these girls, and have posters on the wall, and they talk about them as heroes. And what I found here in 20 years of Canada is that there's lots of soccer fans in Canada, but very few people idolize the Canadian player, until now, and that what's happening is now is it's almost like snobbery is a bit of a strong word, but it was almost like if you're a fan of a European club and you lived in Canada, rarely would the Canadian men's national team ever be even on your radar. Well, I'm not going to watch that. But man, it's your team. You should watch it. It's Canada. Yeah, I might watch it. I don't know. I don't really know any of the players. Who are these guys? But now they bring a legitimacy of it. They bring the fact that these guys have real credentials. Jonathan David is playing in the Europa League. He could win the title in France. Playing against Neymar one week. Alphonso Davies. We know what he's done and what he's accomplished. And you've got others coming in now, and you've got Portuguese fans who follow the Portuguese league that see someone like Stefano Stacchio playing really well against Porto and Sporting and might be getting a big move there. And suddenly the correlation becomes, okay, they're giving me reasons to watch this. And then the second thing that you need is success. You need that team to succeed. You need that team to make a World Cup. You need that team to be playing in big moments where the country can go, wow, we have a team. Oh, wow, I know these guys. Oh, wow, we're going to get behind these guys. And that will carry the country further forward than anything else. We can all talk about it and dream about it and plan it, but nothing will carry it forward in the men's game than getting to a major competition like the World Cup. And that's what's obviously going to come our way in 2026. But this group of players think they can make it in 2022, and I think they have to get close. It cannot be getting knocked out in the first round before they get to the 8. They have to get to the 8, and I think they have to build the story and the momentum that if they do fall near the end, then that's disappointing. But it gathered the momentum, and that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. And it's nice that you brought up the World Cup there, because I think with it kind of on the horizon and it being in Canada, which is going to be great, as is kind of one of the co-hosts. I still think that, Canadian media in particular, I feel like they're trending in the wrong direction almost. And, they're not really providing it with the coverage and the amount of hype that it really needs in order to kind of sustain it to that level when the World Cup really comes around in Canada. So my question for you is, and you did touch on this a little bit, but if you were kind of given the reins and, you were the director of Canada soccer and, they're like, hey, Kristian Jack, we want you to lead the initiative. What's one thing, other than perhaps the stuff that you mentioned, what's one thing that you think needs to happen in Canada for soccer to really take off? Because, I think of hockey's huge. People focus on hockey from a very, very young age, putting their kids in hockey camps, and there's so much money and funding that goes towards that. What do you think it needs to happen in soccer to kind of replicate that and maybe even get it on a similar track as basketball?
Yeah, lots of things. Obviously, again, winning is really important. I mean, basketball is right now huge in the country because of the Raptors, and the Raptors won. And that's something that will, for generations to come, make an enormous difference in the popularity of the sport in this country. Now, TFC won, and that that certainly helps as well. It certainly brings a lot of fans on board. But there's a lot of things I think about. I mean, right away, I think stadium engagement is massive. I think, it's when you get people in the stadium, what are you doing with them? That is so important. Are they there to have a good time and as if they're going to watch a movie and buy a bunch of chicken wings, pizzas and Cokes? Or are they there to watch the game and be engaged and find the next heroes that they like? And do they know about the opponent they're playing that day? Do they care? What are we doing inside the stadiums to encourage them, to keep them to come back? Do they even know who's playing? What kind of things are we handing them out? Like even in the UK, it's, soccer's huge. Everybody knows everybody. When you go to a game, everybody knows everybody on that pitch. Everybody knows all 22 players before they even go. Yet they still buy programs. They still look at their team sheets. The screens in the stadium still have the sheet, the team names all the way through the game. That if you go, oh, who's number 20? Who's number 10 on that team? Oh yeah, that's him. I remember that guy. And then you kind of find a way to engage in the team. It's I think it's really important. Now, I'm not saying that every NBA fan who goes to a Raptors game in Canada knows everybody who's playing for the other team,
Hmm.
but I will say that they'd have a very good idea. And I will say that they leave knowing more about the other team. Yes, they can be 100% a Raptors, but what happens in an NBA game when you go to the Scotiabank Arena and you watch the Raptors and Portland come to town and Lillard scores points? His name gets announced every time, right?
Right.
So right away, mentally, that name is going into the brains of people right away. And another guy scores, and another guy scores, and then you say, "Oh, okay, who's that?" And then you look at the scoreboard, and they have the 5 players on the board who are playing on the floor at that time. The stats are there. How many points? How many rebounds they've got? It's all there in front of your face that you can know if you want. And that's really what we don't do a good job of in soccer in this country.
Hey, that's awesome. If anybody from soccer or Canada soccer is listening into this, consider Kristian Jack, because I think those are some great ideas that would definitely need to be, I think, implemented. Again, I'm wearing a TFC shirt, and I'm guilty of not knowing all 11 players, even on TFC, let alone the other team. I went to a game just because Rooney was coming, and kind of to your point from earlier, we idolize all these people over in Europe, and when they finally come to the MLS, we're like, oh my goodness, like this is our chance to watch. So stuff that definitely even I can work on. And again, I would consider myself a pretty big soccer fan. So if that's something that I got to work on, I feel like it's still a ways to go for other people. But I really kind of like your ideas there. You also kind of mentioned, going to all these different stadiums, traveling coast to coast. We got Vancouver Whitecaps out west, Toronto FC over here, and then going a little bit more east, we got Montreal Impact. Out of all the cities that you visited, I was actually going to say Canada, but maybe we can open it up to North America. Out of all the cities that you visited for a broadcast, what's been your favorite stadium and city to kind of visit? And if those are two separate answers, you can kind of go for that as well.
Okay. Yeah. Favorite stadium, I think, has got to be, I think Red Bull Arena is the best stadium in New Jersey. Certainly not the best place to visit because it's in Harrison, which is like you just basically get in and you get out. But the stadium itself is fantastic. It's like a true European stadium. The way that you broadcast and you call a game, you're basically on top of the stands. It's almost on the roof, really, but it's a beautiful place to call a game from. I've been on the sidelines there too. It is what it sounds. It's a beautiful Red Bull Arena. It's a great stadium. Although LAFC I've been to recently, that's a great stadium too. And Cincinnati, the new one, looks fabulous. So I really enjoy all of those. Favorite city on the road. Doesn't get much better than Vancouver because you're still at home, but it is beautiful. And, you can go for long walks around the city and Stanley Park and everything like that. I do like Los Angeles too, even though we've stayed in different places. So when you go to LA, like I've stayed downtown LA, which is, that was my last visit pre-pandemic. I went to LA to do a 3.5 days work straight of interviewing MLS. It was MLS Media Day. I basically had 58 interviews in 3 days.
Wow.
They just keep bringing them in, and you got to be prepared for coaches and players. And we were actually, me and my producer, we actually walked to the Staples Center and went to see the Clippers play with Kawhi.
Nice.
So that was kind of cool. And actually, another not heartbreaking story was that Kobe Bryant was in the stadium at LAFC with us that morning, and then 2 weeks later passed away. That was crazy. Yeah. So I do like going to LA, not necessarily downtown, but when you go to a Galaxy game, they play out further and you can stay in like Manhattan Beach or Long Beach, and those kind of places are beautiful. And then obviously you can go to Santa Monica, and anywhere near water is a big box to tick for me.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's stuff to add to the bucket list, I guess. You don't, I guess, really think of MLS stadiums as much as as historic stadiums or anything.
No,
but but definitely ones to keep out, especially the Red Bull one that you mentioned. And you mentioned that you like to travel a lot as well. I actually wanted to get your thoughts now, maybe not so much as a reporter, but as a fan. Being around the world, what's been that one stadium that's kind of just taking your breath away as you walked in?
Well, I'll give you two. Actually, I can give you more than two. But I mean, first of all, Villa Park is my original. It'll never get old. I'm a Villa fan, and it is. people would say that I'm biased, but there's been many people who've got no connections to Villa that will tell you it's one of the greatest stadiums in England, no question about it. It was always hosting FA Cup semi-finals as a neutral venue. It's a beautiful place to watch a game. It's got that great combination still of tradition and historic look to outside some areas, and then the new stands around it. Obviously a big stadium for Euro 96 as well. So, I'll never forget my first trip there when I was 9. And ever since, every time I can go back there, that's pretty special. The new camp is really, really special too, going to watch Barcelona. Just the way that the stadium is built kind of into the ground. So you kind of walk in and it's kind of below you. And I was fortunate to go and watch I went a couple of times and to watch the greats, Messi was playing both times, and Xavi and Iniesta and, Busquets and many other great players there. And so that's another one. And then I went to the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, which was when they played the Scotiabank Champions League, CONCACAF Champions League semi-final against Toronto FC and Club America. And that's a place that's obviously hosted 2 World Cup finals, so only the only other place is Rio, and that's been changed to Maracanã. So as in its original state, it's the only stadium that's ever hosted 2 FIFA Men's World Cup finals. And it's still really similar to the traditions when you walk in. We were under a police escort. I had to travel with the team, even though I didn't work for the team. And we went in a police escort. It was this surreal experience. You get dropped off and you walk down this tunnel, and it takes forever to get down to where the dressing rooms are. And down the tunnel there are photographs of all the games and historic games that have been played there. Wow. And every club and country has got like a poster and their emblem in the frame. So you just look at all the great teams that have played there through the years, and you think of Maradona 86 and the Hand of God goal and the great goal against England and winning the World Cup final. And then you go on and you walk down, it's still, the steps that he took, we took, it's still the same. And so that was pretty special to do that one too.
Wow. Wait, so to get that straight, was that the same stadium that Maradona did the Hand of God? Wow, that's a little bit of a history lesson for us there. That's awesome to hear.
Same one, and then he obviously returned for the World Cup final as well, and when they beat Germany there. So you'd walk out and the same areas when he would walk up. There's a ramp behind the goal where I walked up, and you kind of done it. And I think I may have shared it on social. It might have been on my Instagram or on social on Twitter at one point. But it's exactly the same. It's very similar. It's exactly still the same with the way the dressing rooms are and everything. So it was pretty special.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And kind of to wrap up quickly this segment.
I know that was quick. I know that was quick fire. So sorry for the long story.
No, that's okay. Hey, I think those are the stories that I definitely like listening to, and I know our viewers will definitely appreciate as well. Our next one is trust me, it's going to go much quicker, anyways. But I wanted to end this one off to learn a little bit more about maybe your favorite fellow broadcaster to work with at TSN. And I know the MLS on TSN guys kind of had like their own thing going, but did you have someone in particular that you really enjoyed working with?
It doesn't get any better than Luke and Stevie to me. Stephen Caldwell and Luke Wildman are my partners. On-screen chemistry isn't easy to find, and when you find it, we just knew. And working with Stephen in particular, obviously former Toronto FC captain, and just kind of taking each other under our wings. He knew things he could talk about and things I couldn't, and the relationships with them. And so I have to say them. And the other one is James Duffy, who obviously has done everything at TSN and is a complete elite world-class broadcaster that you can put him on anything at any time on any station, and he could do an amazing job. And he is so incredibly smooth and knowledgeable, and it was a pleasure to bring him in and work with him on the Women's World Cup in 2015 and MLS Cup finals and playoffs, and work with him and learn from him and reach similar standards that I believe I can bring to him as well, and he can bring to me. And everyone sees what James delivers and how smooth he is and how brilliant he is and why he does all the major tournaments, and everyone sees what he's able to do on camera, but it's the work ethic that you put behind as well. He's a natural broadcaster, but he never takes it for granted, and he always puts the work in behind the scenes. And that's a little bit of the way, that you have to be like that to do anything you want. You've got to enjoy the grind. You got to enjoy the process to get the end result. And James is a magnificent broadcaster and is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it was always interesting to kind of see James pop up everywhere. I kind of wanted to actually get back to you, Stevie, and I think it was Luke that you mentioned, right? For me, it was quite nice, watching MLS on on TSN, and all the theme music kind of rolling in, and then you hear like these Europeans talking. I believe you and I think it was Luke were the two Brits, I guess, and then you had Stevie that was like his thick Scottish accent. I thought it was a nice, like, you guys obviously had the chemistry there, but even just the interplay between, like, the different accents, I think as a viewer it was quite fascinating to watch as well.
I appreciate the kind words. No, they're great guys, and they're friends of mine off the camera as well, and forever they will be, and that's when you've got a good relationship, that you care about each other and you're there for each other, right? So, and the mutual respect is there as well. You just know that they're putting the hard work in, and they know that you've done the same.
Again, amazing to see. We'll quickly move on to the next segment. It's called This or That. It will be kind of rapid fire. In my opinion, there are some right answers here, so we'll see how you fare. The first one is Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan.
Jordan. Okay. I think that's 2-2 right now between those two. From like the statistics that we've kind of been carrying. This is a new one, and this is the one where I'm very particularly invested in.
Oh boy, I better get this right then.
Yeah, Messi or Ronaldo?
No comments.
No comment. Interesting. No. Okay.
Honestly, if I tell you, because first of all, it's very difficult to compare guys, but I've been asked that question so many times in my career. And it is such a polarizing question that you piss off so many people if you don't give the right answer. And I never even think about it. I love them both. And for me, they are the two greatest players to ever play the game. No disrespecting history. Nobody respects soccer history more than me in this country. I love it. It isn't a matter of they're just in our face right now, so it's easy to say. They are the two greatest players to ever play the game, in my opinion. And comparing them is very, very difficult. So I loved watching Messi in Barcelona and going to see him. For me, he does things on a football field it's an absolute joy to watch. The way that he goes about with the guile and the effortlessness about him. Ronaldo is a little bit more ruthless in the power that he brings and the finisher. So Messi is a little bit more, I think, likable in that sense for people because he's so different, but it's very, very difficult to give an answer to that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's quite all right. I appreciate the honesty there.
What about your answer to it? You said one or the other, so.
Oh, 100%. I think it's Ronaldo. And I'll explain in a second. Actually, I guess this next question is gonna kind of give it away. But before I get there, I do really, really agree with kind of what you said. I think for a lot of fans that always, arguing in the comments about who's better, bringing up all these statistics. I think you're quite right. It's just, it's honestly a privilege to have existed, I guess, in the same timeline as them, and, seeing them at their best and kind of the beauty they bring to the game. And, they're reaching the twilights of their career, and we don't have as much left to see of them. But yeah, over the next couple of years, I feel like fans kind of just got to put those things to the side and cherish them for what they give us. I do like Ronaldo better, but it's not like I hate Messi. Like, I think Messi's obviously great guy. So my next question, I think it's a bit of an obvious one: Barcelona or Real Madrid?
Barcelona for me.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So I'm a Real Madrid guy. That's also why I back Ronaldo. But yeah, again, both great teams. And this is actually probably the question that if you get wrong, there's no forgiving you. Do you put milk in before the cereal, or do you put the cereal in before the milk?
Well, you put the cereal in first, and then you put the milk.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Because
why would anybody put milk in and then cereal? Because it's gonna splash everywhere.
Hey, listen, I have the exact same response as you. I don't know. There are people, for a fact, I've met them. Some of them are my friends, or they maybe were my friends. I don't claim them anymore. That's
just lunacy.
100%. And the fact that I even have to ask that question is sometimes quite quite confusing, but you know what? We need to get to the bottom of this and figure out who's on what side. So
I love these questions. Good job, man. I like those. It's funny. It makes you think. I saw one of these questions the other day, and someone said, "Do you put your socks on standing up or sitting down?" And I was like, who stands up and puts
Yeah.
socks on? But
That's just
apparently,
extra work. Yeah.
a lot of people do. And I was just like, I'm not claiming to be lazy just because I sit down to put socks on. That just seems like the most easiest way to put them on.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
And so finally, I wanted to get to the last segment. I know, we've taken up a decent amount of your evening, so I don't want to keep you for too much longer. Just wanted to end off, just again to get to know a little bit more about you. If you were to kind of go back and you're able to talk to a little Kristian back in Preston, and some time travel voodoo kind of going on, and you're face to face with him, what's one piece of advice you think you'd give him, or maybe on that front, any really young broadcasting kind of individual that wants to get into the sports media kind of field? What's a piece of advice you'd give them?
Wow, another great question. You're really good at this.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Focus on what you want to do, and that encompasses more than just looking at what you want to do as a job, but everything that you do, be present in what you're doing and focus on it, and don't mail it in every time. And the other thing for me is everything. Take care of everything. It is your responsibility. No victim mentality. No matter what happens, it's all down to you. And if things don't go your way, maybe it's not meant to go your way at that time. And at that point, know when to go to foot to the pedal, and know when to turn the car over and park it, and be patient in those moments, because there's going to be moments when you've really got to know where to go, and the moments when you really got to know that you don't go. So I would definitely always give that kind of advice. That's another great attitude. Another piece of advice I always give to people: say yes to everything. You never know where it's going to take you. There's no straight line between where you are right now and where you want to go. You never know where it's going to take you, and say yes to it all. And if you're not sure about whether it's the right thing to do, you can always say no or figure it out later.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of going back to your analogy, put on the brakes and wait for a little bit until the light says go. So finally, I wanted to kind of get to know what are your plans kind of after broadcasting is done? Like, what do you see yourself doing? I know you mentioned travel. I'm sure your level of travel will be even greater at that point, because you'll have hopefully more time on your hands as well. But what do you think? What's next for you after kind of broadcasting and kind of the whole sports thing is done?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think it's going to be, I'm relatively still young. I think hopefully I can still stay in soccer for some time within Canada, and go from there. I like to make a difference. And the thing is with me is that, when I first moved to Canada and I couldn't get in the industry, I found myself in the health industry a little bit, working with people with acquired brain injuries. And, they'd acquired brain injuries usually from motor vehicle accidents. And at the time, I would work with occupational therapists and different kind of therapists to put together a plan as like a rehabilitation coach for these people. And my oldest client was I think 89 at the time, and my youngest was 5. And so just having connections with people, I really enjoyed it, making a big difference. And with my industry that I found myself in now, a lot of people I can connect with, because so many people watch you on television, so many people have got a lot of kind things to say, but I don't directly connect with. I don't see the people I talk to, so yeah. I think, to be honest, if this continues and I continue to go down this path of broadcasting for a number of years or whatever it takes me, I think there will be a certain clamoring for me to make a difference and connect with more people, whether it be in youth soccer or running charity tournaments again, like I've done in the past, and just really trying to just give back. Really, that's kind of something that I'd love to do.
Yeah, awesome. And thankfully for us, that's still quite a ways away. So we're definitely going to keep an eye out for yourself, and I know you'll be up to big things. With that, I do really appreciate you kind of giving us time, giving us your time today, and just talking to us about soccer, the state of soccer in Canada, kind of what we can do with that, and talking about some amazing athletes. We started from Bastian Schweinsteiger, we talked about Alphonso Davies, and just kind of the like. So again, do appreciate you kind of giving us that analysis and that inside look behind some of these athletes that you've definitely made a career out of and gotten to interview. So thanks for that.
Again, Anga, thanks so much for having me on the show. You're terrific at what you do. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. And whenever you put it out there on Twitter and social, I'll share it.
And with that, thank you so much, Kristian Jack, for taking the time to join us. Everyone, go show our boy Kristian Jack some love on Twitter, on Instagram. We'll link it on our posts that we normally have. And with that, we'll be back hopefully sometime soon with another episode of Fans Talking Athletes. Bye for now.